Everybody sing, make love great again. Make love great again. Make love great again. Make love great again. We can all be great, make love great.
There are certain songs that take me back there. And I don't hear these songs often, but the other day I heard Forever Came the Day by the Jacksons. They were playing it for the Tyrone tribute in front of Hollywood High School. Tyrone would come over to Jody's house and he would come and put these records on. He said, listen to this. And he would get up and he would just start whacking to it. Now I'm a musician. I've been in bands, this and that. But for some reason, Tyrone was hearing the music a little more intricate than I ever listened to it, because there would be one string that would just go zit, and Tyrone would just go, that's a Tyrone. How did you hear that? He said, Jeffrey, you have to listen to the music. Suddenly the bass is a doom, 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 and the bass would go doom, 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 boom. And Tyrone go, bum, 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 bum. He would just do what the bass is doing. I'm like, what? I mean, you know the drums, and you know the obvious instruments, but something, just a horn hit, he would hit that. He said, Jeffrey, you have to listen to the music. He was doing this dance and it didn't have a name yet. So the first name that it had was called punking, because it was coming out of the gay clubs. So it didn't have a name. It was referred to as punking. It's because the way Tyrone was teaching it to us. You got to whack that arm. You got to whack that head. No, you got to whack. So that's why I started calling it whack dancing. And then I put 2 A's in it to differentiate it. So W-A-A-C-K-I-N-G. And we created our group called the Outrageous Whack Dancers. We even got into the Ebony magazine. We had like a 4 or 5 page spread in the Ebony magazine as the Outrageous Whack Dancers. One day, it was 1976. Tyrone said, Jeffrey, you have to come to the club and see this. And I said, what club? What the gay club, huh? So I didn't want to go alone. So I asked my friend Cleveland Moses to come with me too. And Cleveland said, what kind of club? I said, no. I couldn't tell Cleveland it was a gay club because he never would have went. Because Cleveland used to be a gangster, right? Wow. He used to be a straight, Cleveland gave up gangbanging to follow us. So Tyrone said, no, you got to go. It was a club on the Brea or Highland Avenue. And it was the old Paradise. It was called the Paradise something. I think that was it.
Paradise Ballroom?
So Paradise Ballroom, there you go, on Highland Avenue. I said, no, Cleveland, it's a new club. We got to go there, because Cleveland only went to Mavericks Flat and Blueberry Hill. He didn't want to know about any clubs on that side of town. So Cleveland came. So we went to the club, we're with Tyrone, we walk in, and Cleveland goes, Jeffrey, there's a bunch of guys in here. I said, no, the girls will come, they'll come later. So, anyway, I will never forget this moment. If I lived 500 years, the record Shaft came on. Just with that wah-wah guitar. Everybody started pacing around the floor to the beat of the music, just walking around the floor. Then all of a sudden, someone was doing that. Someone was doing that. Then all of a sudden the horns. To that, someone else is going. I said, Tyrone, did they practice this? He said, no, Jeffrey, they listened to the music. I'm like, my God. Guess what else? Tony Basil was over in the corner standing next to the speaker watching all of this.
Wow.
Tony Basil was even in there watching this, right? So I knew who Tony Basil was because she was in the Lockers. So I didn't know her yet, so I didn't speak to her. I'm just this little scruffy little kid just getting on Soul Train, so So I'm like, oh, that's Tony Basil over there. So she's there clocking it too. So when we got to everybody, again. I said, Tyrone, are they rehearsing this? He said, no, Jeffrey, they listened to the music. When it got to the very last part of the song, everybody melted to the floor. A person was sliding down a pole. Somebody was sliding out of a chair. At the end of the song, everybody was on the floor. I said, oh my God. Now, the only way you could have seen this is if you had gone to that club or one of those clubs, because this dance hadn't crossed on our side of town yet. It was only being done like that. in the gay clubs. Songs like Eddie Kendrick's Keep on Truckin' and Boogie Down, they were the foundation until it came to Donna Summer's Love to Love You Baby, Never Can't Say Goodbye, then Thelma Houston's Don't Leave Me This Way. These are songs that Tyrone used to come over and put on and say, listen to this, you guys, listen to this. And we just hear things in the song, just a drum drop, boom. And I said, my God, how do you hear that? He said, Jeffrey, you have to listen to the music. Here I am, a musician, and Tyrone's telling me to listen to music. Wow. But it was the intricate things that he was picking out of that he was enacting with his body.
Did Tyrone tell you where he learned this from, or did this just come from him, or is this something he saw, you know, some of the originators do, like Tinker or Lamont or Andrew or Arthur? Because I know he always spoke about them as being his inspiration for waacking.
Okay.
But Tyrone was
very good
definitely
question.
the best at it. I mean, I've never seen anybody teach it or do it quite like Tyrone. But yeah.
This is the dilemma I had with Tyrone.
Mm-hmm.
He took me to the club to see Tinker Toy. He introduced me to Little Tommy. He introduced me to Billy Goodson. He introduced me to Blinky, Arthur, Andrew. Am I forgetting any names? Because these were the premier.
Lamont Peterson, Mickey Lord.
Thank you. Mickey Lord, Lamont.
Yep.
Look, I never saw Mickey in the club, but Lamont was in the clubs. Thank you. I got to learn who everybody was. Then I started going to Gino's. Gino's was on Sunday night, and that's where Michelangelo was the DJ. Mm-hmm. And they had this skinny little Mexican guy that they called the Lizard Woman.
Uh-huh. I've heard about him.
I mean, it was just, if we would have had these handheld devices back then, my God. I mean,
I wish.
If I could have filmed what was going on back then, even the Don Campbell and them dancing at Maverick's Flat, if I could have filmed that, because it's much better than what you see them do on TV, because they're not like limited to how many counts for solo, or, you know, they're just freestyling all night. They're in their own environment, you know, their natural habitat, so to speak. Like Michael Jordan on the basketball court, them in the club, that's their arena, you know? Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I got to know Gino's on a Sunday night. Tyrone would take me to the Paradise Ballroom sometime. Mm-hmm. Then we go up to Santa Monica to, there's the Rage and Mickey's, and then Peanuts sometimes, Peanuts. And I used to go, that's why I saw little Tommy dancing. Tommy was amazing. This little guy, he would just like throw these moves and stuff. So to answer your question, Tyrone always gave praise to these guys. Tyrone never said, "Oh, I invented it." Those words have never came out of his mouth. But what Tyrone did with it was so much lyrical. It was so, his floor moves, his feet movement, his jumps, his arm movement, his head. He took it to another level. So Tyrone would go, "Jeffrey, you got to see so-and-so. You got to see so-and-so." So I go, okay. I'm looking at so-and-so and I'm like, "Tyrone, I want to see you dance." He was so busy giving praise to everyone else, he didn't understand what he was doing. I mean, he used to drive me crazy. Always, "You got to see so-and-so. You got to see." Yeah, okay, I know who so-and-so is, and they are good. And I knew that. But Tyrone, what you're doing with it is somewhere on another hemisphere. I don't know if you got to see Tyrone when he had his legs working, but he was doing his floor moves. Oh, the things he used to do. His body drops to the floor. All these things. And I'm gonna make this known, I'm gonna make it said. Tyrone taught Jody Watley how to arch her eyebrows. He taught her how to work her skirt. Mm-hmm. As much as he was teaching me what I was doing through him. Now I went from the locking to the robot, and then I incorporated the waacking into it. So I became all of that, which made me an all-around dancer.
You know, you mentioned about, you know, being in the club and seeing the way that they were dancing in the club, and how there was, you know, there's a freedom compared to when you have 5 seconds to do something on television. How would you say waacking was different on Soul Train compared to what maybe you guys were doing in the club?
Unless it was Tyrone, Arthur and Andrew came on Soul Train just a couple of times. They weren't like regular dancers. Mm-hmm. Mickey Lord was there more, and Blinky. Later on, Tinker Toy came on a couple of times, but they weren't regular. Mm-hmm. So what it turned into was something kind of watered down. It almost looked like calisthenics, that the dancer was just going arm, 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 They turned it into that, the typical Soul Train dancers, because they weren't in the clubs and they weren't really into the dance as the dance.
Right.
Tyrone was the consummate whack dancer on the show. I have to, even though Arthur and Andrew and Lamont and some people were on the show doing it, but Tyrone had the spotlight. He was on the riser. Tyrone was the recognizable one, and he was there regularly. He was always there. So I have to credit Tyrone for really pioneering it on Soul Train. The other guys were there. I'm not trying to discredit them. They were there, of course, but they weren't regularly. They weren't always there. Tyrone was a regular, so he was always there, and he was bringing it to me, to Jody, to Cleveland, to Kurt Washington. Who else is there? Of course, Sharon Hill. Sharon Hill. That's his other side. They're inseparable, you know. He was the one that was really the ones of us who couldn't go to those clubs or didn't go to those clubs. We were getting it from Tyrone. As far as I'm concerned, from my point of view and where I was coming from, Tyrone was the one who brought whack dancing to the Soul Train dancers, so to speak. Other dancers were there. They would come on from time to time, but Tyrone was regularly there. And he was the one literally teaching us this dance. He would come to Jody's mother's house and he would put on records in the living room. He would dig in a candy jar and I'd be, Tyrone, stop it. Stop eating all that candy because his teeth were getting bad. But he would reach and get handfuls of candy and just be chewing that candy and dancing and dancing.
It's interesting because, Locking, of course, there was the group The Lockers, and then, the Electric Boogaloo's made popping really popular. Why do you think Waacking never hit a peak in the mainstream like those other dances? And why, in your opinion, did it die out? And did it die out? And when?
And very good questions as well, because I don't think anyone's ever asked things like this. So it's making me look back in retrospect and understanding, because I was there, so I know.
Yeah.
Okay, you first have to understand something. Waacking would not have been for everybody because it's kind of feminine, because it comes from the gay club. What they were doing with whack dancing was, they were trying to look like these glamorous golden era Hollywood, Greta Garbo, Betty Davis, these guys, they loved Diana Ross. Any woman who was like a diva, that's who they were imitating. But all these poses, your average guy is not going to get into a lot of that because it's very feminine. And we're talking about back in the 70s. Things weren't as liberal as they are today. You understand? Me coming up a locker and a robot dancer and that, that's like, so that's macho-ness. I say, yo, what's up, man? Yeah, macho. Now, suddenly you're coming up like a, and you're walking, and it's like, okay. Yeah, I remember when that guy used to be a little more macho. So we would incorporate so much of it. There were things in Waacking that I didn't do. Tyrone could go full out. I could only go so far with it because that's as far as I went, So then it got on the show, it got popular because it was something new and the kids were doing it for a while. Diana Ross took Billy Goodson and some dancers on tour with her. That gave it a little notoriety. Then Shabba-Doo eventually started incorporating. It was, I forget the dancer, it was either Arthur or Andrew that Shabba-Doo became really close with. So Shabba-Doo started getting into the dance. And he kind of fell out with Don Campbell because Don Campbell was like, man, we lock it, we don't do that stuff. And Don Campbell didn't like it, But so Shabba-Doo had even gotten into it, So there's a certain amount of it you could do to be acting camp and to be acting cool. Then after that, it becomes more feminine. So it stayed in the clubs. It kind of got popular. People were whacking, they were doing it, but then people would move on to something else. But the whack people who were like living it, they stayed there until for some reason it got slowed down. Not so much footwork, not so much total floor work, but it got slowed down and suddenly it was called voguing, because whacking is the father of voguing.
But voguing was from New York, so these were two
from New York.
They were two different
Exactly.
dance styles. Did you see elements of Vogue in LA, or like what was it like in the 80s? We know that all of the originators passed away. I don't know how all of them passed away. I heard that Ronnie was unfortunately murdered by his boyfriend. I know that the AIDS epidemic hit hard, and all of the originators, Andrew, Arthur, Tinker, Lamont, they're not here to tell their story or see their legacy. But
Right.
and then I also heard that gay clubs turned into straight clubs. But it's not that there weren't people doing it. Like you said, Shabba-Doo and Anna Sanchez were popularizing it in the movie Breakin', and then Jody had Tyrone come in her Still a Thrill video, so you could still see it, but it just never became this global, phenomenon, and then it, I guess, fizzled. When, from your perspective, did you see it kind of die out? Was that like in the 80s or in the 90s?
It was still going on in the clubs throughout the 80s, the people who were into it, because it's the fashion too. And it's interesting what you said about the gay clubs. You said the gay clubs became straight clubs. What it was I went to gay clubs for the dancing. And there's some pretty girls there too. That's what a lot of pretty girls went, because they said, oh, I like to go out with my gay friend because, no one bothers me. So I would go to, I used to love going to the gay club, and they used to dress these girls up really nice too, because their gay friend is either a hairdresser or a fashion designer. And I met a beautiful girlfriend there. She was Mexican. Her name was Michelle Castillo. And I met her at a gay club because she was all dolled up. And one of her friends did her hair, another did her makeup, another one made her dress, and she was beautiful. So anyway, it was the Circus Club. I went there with Tyrone. It used to be on Sunday afternoon at the Circus Club, Circus. That was going in the late 80s, going through the 80s. I was touring with Shalimar a lot, and I was spending a lot of time overseas. So by the time I came back to America, when I was doing Michael's videos, so now we're talking 86 and 87, I would go to clubs looking for dancers. If I did a video, which I did a slew of videos, a lot of people don't know because, you don't get credit as choreographer. Cheryl Lynn, Ready for the World, Troop, The Boys, oh my God, Sheena Easton, Cheryl Lynn. I mean, the list goes on and on, how many videos I did. We would have an open audition, and I would go to clubs. Because at the clubs, you will find some great dancers. At some point, hip hop came along. So these gay guys started dressing like hip hop. And for me, that was the end of that era, because it was the fashion that went along with waacking. The outrageous fashion that they used to put on. They stopped dressing like that. And then they stopped dancing like that. And the music changed. So now these guys got baseball caps twisted backwards, baggy pants and stuff. And the dancing thing had kind of like toned down. The whole fashion and dance thing kind of ended. And I was like, wow, this thing has changed. The game has changed. Voguing came along. You're right, it was from the East Coast. But when I saw voguing, I saw the genesis of waacking in there. The foundation of waacking is there, but it's more pose, it was more attitude than movement. The movement was there, of course it was. If you look at the Madonna's Vogue video, it was really about the attitude and really up movement, a lot of upper movement. The intricacies in waacking, I did not see that there. It was a different animal. But of course, the genesis is waacking. It has to be, because that's the whole thing of posing and attitude and this and that. But voguing made it stronger attitude. And Madonna was singing in her song. Greta Garbo,
Marilyn Monroe, Living the Future.
There you go. You see, and that's what started waacking. They were like trying to emulate. They would see a woman's face on the cover of a magazine, those old black and white golden Hollywood magazines, maybe with the hands around the face and stuff. And that's what these guys, they were imitating that.
Yeah.
So voguing, it took another direction from waacking. And I think from then on, that's what further squashed waacking, because now voguing came to. It may sound passe to say waacking, because now voguing is the thing.
What does waacking look like now in comparison to what you saw back then?
I was in Japan, I was living in Osaka, and I came up to Tokyo, and I was walking through Yoyogi Park, Yoyogi Koen, and I heard some old school music. And I said, wow. And I looked over, and a group of kids were waacking. So I had to stand there, and I stood there in amazement. And they were young kids. I'm like, what do they know about this? What do they know about this? So they were rehearsing for something, and I didn't want to disturb them. So when they had a break, I had written my phone number, because I saw there was one girl, she was a little older, and she was the one organizing them. I wrote my name and phone number on a piece of paper, and I told her, I said, you guys are doing waacking? I don't know who taught you waacking or where you got it from. I gave her my phone number. And as I was walking away, This girl turned around and chased me down. She said, "Oh my God, you're Jeffrey Daniel?" I had no idea they would even know who I was. She said, "You're Jeffrey Daniel? Oh my God." Then she called the other guy, and his name is Hirose. He owns a magazine called DDD. Tyrone came and we were in the magazine. He didn't know who I was, but listening to this girl, I think her name is Yoshi, and she's a dancer. She's a white dancer in Tokyo. This is around 2007 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, Hirose is my Japanese manager. Because I saw these kids whacking and I stopped there and watched them. And I just had to know, how did they know this dance?
Mm-hmm.
This is my big brother's dance. So how do they know this dance?
Mm-hmm.
In 2009, when Tyrone came to Japan to teach in Osaka, Hirose got on the bullet train and came all the way down to Osaka to take photos of me, Tyrone, and Cleveland Moses together. And he put it on the DDD magazine. It was the first time me and Tyrone in Japan together at the same time. Mm-hmm. It was the first time me, Tyrone, and Cleveland were together in about 30 years.
Wow.
I'm always with Cleveland and I'm always with Tyrone, but Cleveland moved to Osaka and never came back to America.
Right.
So I'm with Cleveland and I'm with Tyrone, but the first time the three of us stood next to each other in about 30 years.
That's beautiful. I owe so much to Tyrone. This dance has taken me around the world, and I see people around the world embracing it. What you were speaking about, when you talk about the way Tyrone would teach, he's the only person that ever taught the dance like that, as far as I know. He's the only person that would say stop and listen to the music. He never would teach choreography. Even though he's a choreographer, he never taught choreography. He knew how to clean up a dancer's technique without obliterating their personality. And that's what I've always heard about whackers and whacking and the original whackers, that everybody danced differently. So when
everybody had their own style.
Everybody had their own style. So when you looked at all the dancers from back then and also from today that are doing whacking, that have all of these original styles, for you, what are the elements that make whacking whacking?
The ability to improvise what you're hearing on the record with your body motion. The ability to create whatever persona that you're trying to interpret. That's whacking. And it's not just arm movements, arm movement, arm movement. No, it's a total body movement. It's floor poses. It's landing in a chair. It's jumping on a pole. It's sliding across the floor. If you take locking or if you take popping, whacking is intricate as those dances are. It has just as many variations of movement. So if you can go into the total variation of movements, which is basically working your legs, working your arms, working your body, working your head, creating certain poses and positions. If you drop into a chair, and then how you going to get out of that chair? You're not just going to get out of it like a pedestrian. You have to find a way to get out of it to the music. Mm-hmm. To the music. If there's an object and you picked and you used it, just to the music. I think the whole impetus of whacking came from, at the gay club, they like to pantomime. So I think it came from the whole thing of pantomiming the record, pantomiming that diva singing the song, and then doing all these moves along with it. I'm sure that's where it came from. We would be dancing at Maverick's Flat. That we're all on Soul Train, I'm a well-established Soul Train dancer. So we go to Maverick's Flat and we're dancing, and I would just wait for Tyrone to come. I said, when is Tyrone coming? Is he coming? Sometimes he didn't come. But you never saw him come and you never saw him leave. We would be on the dance floor dancing. I don't want to use bad language. Can I repeat what he said? Huh?
You can repeat what he said. We can bleep it out if we need to make it for kids, but I think it's fun.
Okay. I'll give you the radio version. Radio version. We're out of the dance floor dancing. We're doing our thing. Everybody's gone, and all of a sudden you hear, "If you didn't come to dance, get the F out." And that's Tyrone. He just walked in. and so Tyrone would jump on the floor, and we would be like, "Yeah, Tyrone is here. Tyrone is here." And I said, "Tyrone, don't go. Please stay." He stayed. He said, "Okay, I'll stay." So we're dancing. Everyone's dancing. We're going through our thing. Tyrone is like, I can't repeat some of the stuff he used to say because the most outrageous things would come out of Tyrone's mouth. But he would just take everybody to the next level. He's like, you know, we used to have a Soul Train night every Sunday, and we used to have a dance contest. And every time a new couple would walk out onto the floor, Tyrone would go, it better be good.
Oh my.
It's like he was a mess. So we would love for Tyrone to come, but suddenly you'd be dancing, and I'll turn around and like, where's Tyrone? Where is he? And I'd even run outside. His car would be gone. He would just be gone because he would have to go back to the other side of town to his club. I mean, for him to be at Maverick's Flat was just so magical. His energy, his presence, being there. I don't know what I meant to people, but I know what Tyrone meant to me, being there. So whatever effect I had on people, I don't know. But if the Lockers were in the club, if Tyrone was there, I was in heaven.
Tyrone was the same for me and for my generation. I mean, he would start teaching and he'd walk in and he'd be a hoo-ha doll, and then he would say, okay, everybody, you need to leave your virginity at the door. And he would, you know, he would say, I want to see the tatas, lift and separate. You know, he would have all these Tyronisms, but it's interesting because there was this element of him distracting us with comedy, and it made us forget about our insecurities. It made us just all of a sudden be present, be ready, and be able to live in that confidence. Waacking is so special because it somehow invokes this confidence. It's like this other personality, this inner diva. I don't even know how else to explain it. It's just like you become more powerful when you do it.
That's what it's about. If you don't have attitude, you cannot do that dance. You have to have attitude. You have to have the confidence. Yeah, you have to, because that's what the dance is. It's the boast of, I'm that, okay? I'm all that in a bag of chips. What are you? You know, that's the whole attitude behind it. Yeah, of course.
And
you have to have that attitude.
And the fashion too. I mean, what do you think about if people come out to do waacking and they're wearing like sweatpants and a hoodie? Does that work for this dance? Or I just had to put it out there because you know. You
know what that's like? That would be like, I guess, the Avengers showing up wearing sneakers and sweatsuits or something. Not Iron Man in his mechanical suit. Not Thor with his hammer. I mean, I don't know how else to, I don't know what other kind of an analogy to draw with that.
That's a perfect analogy.
Because it's about the fashion, it's about the attitude, it's about the confidence, as you said. It's about that showing off, that posturing and that posing. Your garment has to flow with the move. Even if you wore, let's say a guy just wore a regular collar shirt, but that shirt had to be unbuttoned. So as he moves, it would like flow with it, like, you know, almost fan out like a cape or something like that, you know? It's all of that. If you're gonna wear a hat, then you better know how to work that hat. I don't know if people understand that there's just as much intricacy, technique in waacking as there would be in locking or as there would be in popping. But I don't know if people looked at it like that because it was coming from the gay club. But it's just as strong a dance as any of those other stable dances that have lasted from the 70s up until now.
It's interesting seeing also the many different approaches. What I've seen confuse people about this dance is the fact that it can be done so many different ways because it's so individualistic. Especially my generation, we're visual learners. We want the formula. We want, okay, I do this and then I do this and then I do this. And this dance is not that. It has to come from within. So when you see straight men doing the dance in comparison to gay men doing the dance, what do you think, or what advice would you give to straight men, or how can you describe the difference?
The only difference between straight men waacking and gay men waacking are, I don't think a straight man is going to totally give himself into the feminine aspects of it, trying to act out a Hollywood diva, unless he's liberal-minded enough, just interpreting the music. As Tyrone always said, if you don't understand the music, you'll never understand the dance. You have to know that song you're dancing to, and you're gonna have to know all the little things happening with the horns, with the lead vocal, with the drums, with the bass, because you can't go out and whack to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, no. You have to whack to whatever that music is doing. Therefore, if the DJ puts on another song, now you've got to adapt to that rhythm and that beat. So if you're whacking, you're constantly adapting to whatever song is on. You can't just have, this is my whack pattern, and I'm gonna do this throughout the song. The same thing, no. And then you're not whacking.
I want to show you this. Can you see this? I don't know if you can see this on the screen.
A compilation of CDs?
This is, yes, these are all of Tyrone's whacking CDs. I still have them all.
He gave me.
Okay?
He gave them to me too. I have them upstairs here in Nigeria. I have them.
So why did Tyrone need to do this for us? Why do you think he did this for us, and why was giving us this necessary? Why is disco necessary? I mean, we can whack to anything, right? So why disco?
Because it's the music that the dance was created to. It's the music that brought out the dancing, because that music has those beats in it. It has those strings in it. It has those horns in it. It has those drum drops in it. Now, you could put on hip hop music and whacking. Hip hop is a different rhythm, and it's a continuous rhythm. You could put on something else, but those songs are like the soundtrack to whacking. That's how it was created, to these dynamics. These songs have those the devil's gun, E5, oh, looking down the barrel of the devil's gun. I mean, it's these dynamic things that are happening in this salsa orchestra, Silver Connection.
Tyrone, Love and Kisses, Voyage.
There you go. So,
disco.
see, but
Right.
There you go. You know it.
Teaching whacking to another genre of music, it would be like me teaching salsa dance to merengue music and saying,
You
oh,
see?
well, they're both Latin. You know, that's the thing. Funk is interesting because funk is close to disco in that it was live recorded and that it was from the same era. But I would love for you to talk about the differences between disco and funk, because when people whack to funk music, all of a sudden I start seeing this. I start seeing that. Is this something that was part of whacking?
No, because funk would have a different bounce to it. Funk would have a different bounce, you know?
Yeah.
Funk is it depends on who the funk is coming from. If it's a James Brown funk, if it's like a funk from the bands like BT Express, or the BT Express is a little more disco. They're a little more straightforward in their beat.
Yeah.
But Parliament Funkadelic or the Gap Band or Funking for Jamaica, Tom Brown, that was like really borderline, because boom, it was borderline funk and disco. Bohannon, Start to Dance. I mean, there's certain records that you put on, and that's just the epitome of whacking. You just got to whack to that record.
Yeah.
And as you said, you can whack to a funk record or a disco record, but you're not going to feel the same ambience. You're not going to feel the same attitude that if you put on who's one of the diva records?
Oh, Love to Love You Baby, or
Runaway Love,
Driving Wheel,
Houston.
Down to Love Town.
There you go. Because now you're improvising the record.
Right.
Whacking is a very improvisational dance. You can't just be locked into a formula with it. There are certain steps that are kind of like general steps, but from there and in between, you've got to improvise. And that's what Tyrone tries to pull everybody out. Tinker Toy dance only like Tinker Toy. Blinky dance like Blinky. Arthur dance like Arthur. Andrew dance like Andrew. Tyrone was dancing like everybody plus some. I think Tyrone was everybody rolled into one plus some. Tyrone in there. Now all of them could do floor work. Not all of them could do other things. Tyrone encompassed every area of the dance. So I don't know how many people can do it in every area like that, but Tyrone could do every area of that dance.
See, a lot of my generation didn't get to see Tyrone doing that. I mean, when I met him, he already had some problems with his hips. They weren't so bad, but he wasn't running across the floor, you know? So we didn't really get to see that. And the clips on Soul Train are so short and so small. There's one clip of him dancing to Devil's Gun where you see him leaping and you see him jumping, but otherwise they're just like very, very short clips, and there's not a lot of actual footage of what it looked like back then. So hearing you tell the stories of what it looked like, and the way that Tyrone used to dance is incredible, because we've just never seen it.
You know what really hurts my heart is now that I'm looking back on Soul Train, when Arthur did appear on the show and Andrew did appear on the show, Lamont, Tyrone was there as the regular more often than they were. But the cameraman would be panning across, and you would see, was it Andrew or Arthur? I think it was Arthur Andrew, that he wore a long cape-looking thing like Neo in the Matrix. And he picked it up and he put it over his head like this, and he opened it up, and the camera just went right past. And I'm like, did the cameraman understand what was going on? These people know. They would just like pan right across them like that.
Right.
Or either they would come down the line and they would just have a few seconds and go to the next. I'm like, do they know what they're cutting away from? Oh, yeah. I could bite out my nails watching this.
You know,
they didn't understand what was happening on that show.
I mean, probably not. I mean, even now, the way dance is filmed, it's filmed cut. You know, you can't even see the dancing anymore. But Tyrone told the story of when Papa Was a Rolling Stone was playing, and Don Cornelius told everybody to start dancing because he didn't understand that people were hitting the bass line and posing to the beat.
Yeah, I will never forget that. I was watching it on Soul Train where they're all in the boom, boom, da-dum, I remember that. I was at home watching that, and I was like, wow. Yeah, you're right. And they were all, and maybe he didn't understand it, but that's what they would have done to it in the clubs. And now they brought it on to Soul Train. They didn't understand what was going on yet. They were just looking at it as a feminine thing, but they didn't understand that there was a whole dance culture being cultivated that was about to just become something so substantiated as waacking. And as I said, it didn't have a name at first because it was coming out of the gay club. So the first sight of it and the first name that it was given was punking. They would call it punking. Oh, he's punking. Oh, he's punking. Until we named it waacking.
I've heard that waacking, the term waacking, in some cases, I've heard that it describes the waacking arm movement, and that punking describes the drama and the attitude and the persona and the character. While I can see that making sense, you know, as both terms are descriptive, I feel like whether you call it waacking or punking, I believe it's one dance. I see it as one dance, the same dance, different names. But you can't have one without the other. If you're just doing this, if you're just doing the drama, you're missing part of it. And if you're just doing arms without the attitude and the character, you're missing part of it. So call it waacking, call it punking. If you don't have all the elements, you're not doing the dance. Is that correct?
There you go. You're very right. You're more than correct. And it's like, even for me, it pains me when I see someone standing planted with their feet planted and they're just doing arm movement. Come on, it's more to the dance than that. You got the jump, you got the run, you got the slide, you got the dip, you got the floor pose, you got the go grab a chair, go grab a fan, go grab a cup. Dance with your environment, dance with your elements. That's waacking encompasses all of that. What you're wearing, you know, your clothes, your hat, you know, snatch a hanky out of your pocket and wipe yourself, and it's all of that. It's all of that. Locking too, if you're just standing there going hunch and pointing, hunch and pointing, no, that's not locking. Locking is working with what you have, working with surround you. You've got to cover the floor. It's so much more to it than just a aesthetic, technical looking, you know?
Absolutely.